Ooh, the fear of sexual betrayal, especially by the DF with the DM, just because the way it's meant to show up. And because of that, that creates a fear of intimacy and then leads to potentially elongated, prolonged periods of loneliness. Now, that's just not fun. So we're going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to share some shocking revelations as to why this may be happening, why it happened to you in the first place, and you have a history of it, and why it's coming back up again to be healed. And then, of course, I'm going to share some suggestions as to how you can continue to heal that at a deeper level. Hi, I'm Ann Hayes, aka Mama G, Sacred Sexuality and Feminine Sovereignty mentor who empowers twin flames to alchemize sexual trauma into embodied power with my Sacred Sexuality reclamation method so that you can experience true intimacy, lasting fulfillment, and confidently step into your purpose, pleasure, and radiant feminine sovereignty. Now, before we get into it, I'm going to share with you right now that I'm excited. I finally got my website up and going, and that aligns with my new branding at this point. So I'm going to share that in the links, access that, and you can see all the beautiful offerings that I have to literally support you in just changing your life significantly, dramatically, in the shortest amount of time possible. Yes, brought through me for you. And also invite you to a free call to see how we can dig deeper into what it is you need at this time. So here's the deal. Sexual betrayal. Sexual betrayal is essentially cheating, infidelity. Somebody is having sex with somebody else without your consent, without a mutual agreement, and it's usually done in secrecy, which makes it really much worse. There's manipulation, there's deception, there's guilt, there's shame, there's all, rejection, all kinds of emotions and feelings that happen around sexual betrayal. Now, if you're somebody who has a history of sexual trauma, I guarantee you that you have experienced sexual betrayal. Especially as a divine feminine on the TF journey, you have likely experienced a relationship where somebody cheated on you. They were secretive, they were dishonest, they had an affair, and in fact, it just seemed like that was always running in somewhere in your heart, in your head, like, oh my God, is this going to happen again? Is this sustainable? Is this person going to walk away? Are they going to cheat on me? Am I going to be enough for this person? Essentially, those were some of the thoughts that went in and through my mind. And for just to share very quickly, my personal story is I was with my first partner for almost 23 years. We had two children together, and for 20 of those years, she had another woman in her life. They had ended up having, I did not know at the time. There's a lot of manipulation around it. I'm not going to go into the details. Super manipulative to really keep me off track. And they had a son the same age as our firstborn and our son. And yeah, in the fact that we're lesbians, I mean, just made it even that much more really interesting and challenging and hurtful. And so I found out, however, after my partner had passed. She had developed cancer while my kids were still young. I had taken care of her. Obviously, there was a lot of friction in our relationship at that point because something was just off. I just couldn't pinpoint it. And there were just so many lies and so much manipulation and so much deception. And there were red flags, and yet I was in denial because of my own love addiction. I mean, it takes two to tango. I had my own role in it. And there's a lot more involved in it. I could write a whole book about it, and yet it left me feeling rejected. It left me with such a deep wound to be with somebody who I had thought was the love of my life, that I thought was my forever love, and I thought who was always honest. And I questioned, did she ever really love me? That was the deepest wound that I had. Like, why did this person stay with me if they wanted to be with somebody else? And if they didn't love me. And that was the most hurtful aspect of it, even more so because we had gone to couples therapy, and to find out after she died, to be there with her on a deathbed, to call her family, and then I realized, yeah, there was just some things at the end I realized, okay, I noticed some things. And it all made sense after. About a week later, I was cleaning out her stuff. And that's when I started to find printed emails. I mean, it was just different back then. This was in 2009. And um, I would just find prints. Like I just started, look, I'm taking prints off the wall because I was like, okay, we're just going to have to clean out here. I think at some point I'm going to plan to move. I just want to move beyond the energy of this. And I'm finding like these notes, these love notes and these photos and, behind the frame pictures of this place where she used to go visit this woman with dates and everything. I was shocked. I was shocked at the level of deception and manipulation. And I just felt so rejected, so unloved, so unappreciated. So where did this start? And where did it likely start for you? If you're here, you probably already have an idea. Okay. Yet I'm going to take it a little bit deeper than you might expect. And it may be a little bit shocking, yet stay with me because sometimes we just have to have the awareness so that we can truly heal in the way that we need to, so that we can then move on, change this pattern, and then know and trust that we and you are opening up to physical reunion with a divine partner that is one full of devotion and loyalty and commitment, where sexual betrayal is not going to happen. Because if you're healing this pattern, then your other self is also healing this pattern. You heal it with each other. You're the same soul. Okay, so let me just begin with that. You can heal this, and it can show up in a way that you desire your reality, where that never happens again. And I'm going to explain why it starts from you. It always starts with you. So first of all, if you're here, you've experienced sexual trauma. You've likely experienced it as a child. Now, whether you're male, female, whatever gender, whatever it is, you were, if it were as a child, you were sexually abused, likely by a caregiver, close family member, or somebody who might have been well respected in the community. So let's say, for example, if you were female, okay, or if you were I have to be careful with genders, and yet let's say it was your dad who abused you, you may have felt like if it were your mother, like a regular heterosexual couple, you may have felt like you betrayed your mother, even if you were too young to even consciously be aware of what sexual betrayal was. Something in the energy, you already knew there's something off here. This shouldn't be this way. This is wrong. Why is there secrecy? I am betraying my mother. Okay, or maybe it's an uncle and you're betraying the aunt, or maybe you are a guy and you were abused by your dad, betraying your mother, maybe by your mother, you were betraying your dad, or you were abused by somebody else. And at any rate, somehow you felt like you were betraying somebody somewhere. So not only did you get that subconscious programming that said, this is kind of how it works, this is kind of how it functions. People, when they connect sexually, it's about secrecy, it's about betrayal. That's how it works. Whether it feels good or not, that was the message that you got. And yet it was deeply, deeply embedded. So you didn't necessarily have that in your conscious awareness. The other aspect of it was that you likely took on shame, guilt, because here you are keeping a secret, okay, about something that you know really shouldn't be happening, that somehow you know should be happening between parents or an aunt, uncle, or somebody else, and yet it's with you. So you feel like you're betraying, like I already said. So it's the programming, and then it's the guilt and the shame on top of it. There's more shame though, because the adult who is sexually abusing you is projecting their pain and their shame and their unhealed trauma onto you. So you're carrying their shame on top of your own shame and your own guilt. And then there's the secrecy on top of it, holding all this energy in. And then think about that every time you sit down to eat, and it's either mom or dad or somebody, like they give you a meal, guilt every single time. Oh my goodness, they're providing for me, they're taking care of me, they're nurturing me, and you feel guilt every single time because you have this secret. And even though, and here's the thing, if you're a child, do not, especially, you should never shame yourself for that secret because somehow you've been silenced into secrecy, whether it was a threat or not. I know for me, it was a very manipulative, threatening kind of way, verbally, and yet physically, it was also very threatening. I mean, I don't know if I've shared some of the detail, like I don't go into too detail, but I do share a couple of details just so you know I get it. And to, for example, understand why there could be challenges around the throat, challenges another way. And you know, I'm just going to dig a little bit deeper at some point. Maybe it's a Patreon channel or something else so that I can go even a little bit deeper because it does go deeper. As deep as I go on this channel, it does go deeper. And that's when you show up with me privately in private groups, I'm going to lay it down for you. I am just going to get raw and real, not to dance around the story, so that you have a better understanding of how your pain has showed up, why there are these patterns in your life, and why the struggle has continued for you. I'm here to help you end that struggle because I've learned so much on this journey. So let's get back to the sexual betrayal. So then you have a partner who shows up or somebody in a committed relationship, they end up cheating on you, or you worry that they're going to cheat you. And then it's that self-fulfilling prophecy because if you worry, they are going to cheat. Or maybe it's just that some part of you know that that's just expected. Or maybe it's not expected. Okay. In my circumstance, I didn't expect it. And part of the reason I didn't expect it is because in my own family, I believed that my father had cheated on my mother, and yet it was so covert and so like it just wasn't out there. My mother wasn't the type to get angry. She wasn't the type that was going to question my father or confront him around why he's arriving late, why he was at the bar after work. Instead, she was just depressed and just would withdraw, and it was completely disempowered. Okay, so it was very difficult to really understand what was going on. And yet, in retrospect, I could see that that was part of the challenge, that he was just, whatever the reason, he was looking elsewhere. And he did allude to this when he got a lot older. He did allude to this. So that somehow, even though I wasn't consciously aware of it as a child and even as a young adult, was in my programming. Okay, well, guess what? When things get tough, daddy is going to cheat on mommy. And now mothers cheat too, but usually most often it's the father. And if the father has the dominant masculine energy, the male figure, that's most likely what's going to happen. It's usually easier for the dad to cheat, especially when I was growing up, because they were, well, I can't even say that. I'm just saying, in my experience, it seems that men are more likely to cheat on women. However, there are many women who cheat on men. At any rate, that was in my unconscious, subconscious programming, is that that's what men do when things get tough. And things didn't, I don't remember things really getting tough in my particular relationship. What I do remember is that, and I'm going to be 100% honest. I would just say I was very promiscuous before I fell in love with this person who would become a life partner. Even when we were together, it was kind of secretive. And because it was my first experience with a woman, um, I didn't really see it as a regular relationship. I don't know. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. It was a different time period. No excuses. So there were a couple of times when if men approached me, I would respond. I'd be making out with men at the bar, and like I said, that was my wounding. I was drunk. I'm not saying it's okay. So she's witnessing this. So it's hard for her to imagine that when we finally decide that, okay, we're a thing, let's move in together, that I would be loyal and that I would be faithful. And that's exactly what I was. However, that being said, I was always thinking about other women. And that's a whole nother part of it because I was literally part of it felt like a celibate connection. At any rate, that's a whole nother video. So I know that I put that energy into it, and that was my wounding. That was due to my sexual trauma. That was due to looking for external validation. And it was also me not feeling safe enough to say no. If a man was making advances toward me, and this could be the same for you, there's a programming in there that says because of the sexual abuse, okay, this guy's bigger than you. He can harm you. You got to do what he says, even if you don't like it, because you could get hurt or you could even die. In my situation, it was there was a lot of very intense physical um, aspect to my sexual abuse where I probably blacked out hundreds and hundreds of times. Um, that's how intense it was. So it did make sense, although I didn't understand at the time that it was hard for me to say no. And it got me in some tricky situations at the time. So I'm not making an excuse for her at all. I'm just giving you the whole context as far as it was for me, and maybe you can look at that and how it is for you. So the sexual betrayal, like I said, there may be some part of you that was first of all programmed, okay, this is just how it is when the going gets tough, depending on your own family situation. The second part is you feel like you had sexually betrayed somebody else, so potentially you are punishing yourself. Like there could be some part of you due to the shame and the guilt that is punishing yourself. In other words, telling yourself that you don't deserve to have this kind of relationship where people can be loyal to you, where people can be honest with you, because you didn't experience that as a child. There was secrecy, there was lying, there was manipulation, there was deception, there was dishonesty. And so that is being reflected, that was reflected back to you in any relationships that you might have had. The great news is if you're here now, that ends now, it stops. Because first of all, I'm sharing this awareness. Second of all, if you're here, you're likely on a TF journey and you really desire to come into harmonious physical reunion, or maybe you're already in physical reunion and yet you would like to experience a little bit more harmony. You would like to have more faith in the fact that you believe that your divine counterpart is loyal, committed, and devoted, and you don't have to question that at all. I'm not saying you won't, but you're going to find that your nervous system will start to calm and to settle because as you heal, your divine counterpart, whether you are in physical reunion already or not, or sacred preparation, you will notice a difference in your nervous system. You will feel calmer. You will feel more relaxed. I'm not going to say you still won't experience fear and anxiety, especially when you feel that union energy strengthening. I know for me, there's just another layer of fear, of anxiety, is because I deeply desire that physical reunion. I truly believe it is meant to be. That is my highest timeline, which means it would have to be my twin flame's highest timeline. And so it's me working through, oh my goodness, because I've surrendered. It was a long time before I surrendered to this journey and found peace and found my focus and really focused on my calling. And yet, when that you start to feel that union energy, because the union starts within you, you're like, oh, money's showing up. That's masculine energy. That could mean that the DM is potentially showing up because it's all connected. Anyways, so let me see what else I have here. Okay. Um, okay, here's another thing I have. It's because of the secrecy and the shame and the guilt as a child, you may believe that somehow you don't deserve to enjoy the pleasure of sex. Or maybe it wasn't pleasurable anyways because it was shrouded in secrecy and you don't want it anymore. So you see where all this is coming up to be healed? Okay, let's see. Okay. Here's the other thing is like I used to tell myself I would never cheat. And I didn't. Even when I discovered that she was at the very end of our relationship, when she was ready to pass on, honestly, she was ready to die. I mean, it was point blank in my face. That's, it was like, Oh, okay. Um, Yet I did emotionally. I did in my mind because I said, you know what? I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied. I had a lot of repressed sexuality. Um, I was just sexually frustrated all the time. I loved this woman and I wanted to be able to express it, and yet she wasn't fully there. And again, that was the mirroring, that was the reflection. And it had also um, the fact that being homosexual and her own shame around that, and her Catholicism and the way she was brought up. So there's a lot of little nuances here that we could talk about. Um, so here's the thing. If you desire, I know if you're here, first of all, we are all sexual. It's just a matter of, is it repressed or not? Is it too intense? Is it done with presence? Is it really fully expressive? Because being sexual, what does it really mean? Okay. To me, being sexually liberated is a whole nother thing. Sexually liberated means you can be wildly erotic, you can be yourself, you can share your deepest desires, your needs, your boundaries. You can actually get a little emotional when you're having sex. You can just say, okay, this is what it is. And when you can feel that confident and that comfortable, that to me is a sexually liberated being. And if you're here, like I said, that's what you desire. You desire the path of spiritual ascension where you get to embody pleasure, where you get to embody your ascension, where you get to embody the divine and experience the divine in ecstatic, intimacy with another physical being. That's what you've chosen, especially if you're on a TF journey. I know I've chosen that. Um, yeah, yeah, I have yet to fully express myself in the way that I would like to, because anytime I would express a desire or a need, I would be shut down. I would be shamed. It would be, oh my God, it's because you had sexual trauma. You always want it. You're too sexual, or you want to do this, you want to do that. And I was just shamed, shamed, shamed. And like I said, my shame must have attracted that. So, could likely be the same for you. Here's your opportunity to move beyond that and have hopefully the type of intimacy you truly desire. Starts with self-intimacy, by the way. Okay, so here's the deal. If you are not addressing the pain around your own sexual betrayal, it's going to come out in other ways. It's going to come out as rage, as anger, anguish, loneliness, depression. It's going to come out in mental health challenges. It's going to come out in physical disease. So if you in conditions. So if you have any type of condition, if you have a mental health challenge, if you have anxiety, depression, if you have actually a diagnosed mental health illness, by the way, which is just unhealed trauma and literally unhealed shame, that's my belief in my experience. And it's going to come out. And you are likely to project it onto somebody else and to blame somebody else until you have the awareness of what's really going on. And then you have the choice. You get to choose what you do with it. Now, I host a free monthly healing circle called the Body ReConnect. And I guide you through a specific body process to start to reconnect you to your bodily sensations, to the emotions connected to those bodily sensations, and to help to heal some aspect of your inner child and your sexual trauma, to help to begin to open up your body and to open up the receptivity and the feminine softness in your body. That is what changes the game. All of this, all of this. So that happens the first Wednesday of every single month. It's coming up very shortly on May 6th, every Thursday. Can't remember the time, but like I said, I'm going to drop that link in there. You can also book a free strategy call and see what your needs might be at this time, whether or not we'd be a good fit. And I have a free private video where I share the 3 key discoveries that I made on my own journey that were a complete life game changer, life changing transformation in the shortest amount of time possible. Even though I worked with all these coaches and all these programs and these healers and different modalities, I was continuing to struggle until I discovered these 3. So grab that if you're interested. And let's see what else. Another thing you could do is go to your first sexual experience, and like you could do that with the Body ReConnect, and kind of you could write down whatever you remember, like what kind of emotions, what were you experiencing, just write it down, get it out, let it release, allow it to go. Forgive yourself. Maybe you put on the Ho'oponopono prayer. I'm real big with that one. If I think of it, I'll drop a link to Spotify to a particular Ho'oponopono prayer song that I absolutely love and I resonate with. And then what you can choose to do if you feel ready is you can actually sit down and write a letter from your ideal legendary lover. That ideal legendary lover is devoted, is committed, is loyal, is honest. There is effective communication. They are vulnerable. They make the most sweetest, intimate love. Excuse me, and they're passionate at the same time. They're affectionate. Whatever it is you desire, you laugh together. Okay, you truly, truly enjoy a depth of intimacy. What does that look for you like for you? And really, really feel every aspect of it, envision it, feel the sensation, visualize that as being your new reality and how you connect with others. Well, obviously with yourself, you can practice that with yourself. Self-pleasure, talk about that too. How would you like that to be with your divine counterpart? You see, you get to start to co-create, literally. You're creating that reality. You're creating that highest timeline because that is the highest timeline. The highest timeline is not polyamory. It's not shared relationships. It's not cheating. It's not open relationships. I truly believe that it is not at this point. Your highest timeline at this time, because of what you've been through and your sexual trauma, is where you have a connection, where you feel completely open, vulnerable, safe, where you get to experience an emotional depth, where there is presence, where there is devotion. If you have experienced sexual trauma and you're repatterning, you've got to do that one-on-one with your DC, with your TF. I firmly believe that. I'm not saying there aren't other possibilities within the TF experience. I'm going to tell you right now, for those who especially have experienced sexual trauma, no way. So you decide. There it is, there it is, there it is. Don't forget, please remember the Body ReConnect Free Healing Circle, first Wednesday of every month with yours truly and his AKA Mama G. Like, comment, keep it nice, keep it kind, subscribe, share, all of the above. We're here to support each other. I hope you like this. Let me know how it resonates with you. Love you so much. Peace, peace, peace. Let's put an end to the sexual betrayal and come into sexual devotion, presence, and true intimacy. Ooh, let's get it.